Hey, welcome back to Dynam ICS Training Solutions, the next generation of ICS learning. I'm Mark, the ICS Rebel. If you've already watched part one, you know what we're all about. Plain language, facilitator-led ICS training that actually makes sense for real people doing real work. If you haven't watched part one yet, go do that first. I'll wait here. Seriously, it's got the intro, the background, and the kind of legal excitement only lawyers could love. All right, let's roll into part two. In this segment, we're introducing the three-component system, a framework designed in-house by Dynam ICS Training Solutions to simplify how ICS actually functions in the real world. It's our way of saying, let's stop memorizing the book and start understanding the system. You'll see how the first component, the action cycle, is the heartbeat of ICS. It's the simple, repeatable flow that turns all that ICS theory into action. We'll walk through each step individually, one piece at a time, in this and the following videos, and by the end, you'll see how it all fits together, kind of like Lego, if Lego came with paperwork and a planning meeting. Just a quick reminder, all content, images, and mnemonics you see here are the property of MWE Training Solutions, Inc. Full copyright and usage details are in part one, right next to that thrilling legal disclaimer we all know and love. All right, grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into the three-component system, starting with the action cycle, the foundation of how ICS actually gets things done. All right, before we roll into the new stuff, let's jog the memory a bit and recap what we covered back in part one. Michael, what's the answer to question 3? Oh yeah, it's a video. Sorry, at ease. Back to the recap. We started with the introductions and legal stuff, the exciting world of who we are, copyright, and disclaimers. You're welcome. Then came Mark's almost fence-fire video, our very own Type 5 incident. Without even realizing it, I ran that one using the action cycle we're about to discuss. Type 5, 1, operational period, minimal resources, maximum embarrassment. But hey, great teaching moment. We talked about how you've been doing ICS all your lives. Every time you solved a problem, delegated a task, or managed chaos without calling it ICS. We defined what a management system really is. It's just how people stay organized and get things fixed efficiently when something hits the fan, and we need guidance, clarity, and cooperation to win the battle. Then we clarified what qualifies as an emergency incident. It's not a cat stuck in a tree. It's something out of the ordinary that needs structure, decisions, and action now, not later. Lives may be at risk, an incident needs to be stabilized, and property or the environment has to be protected. We dug into ICS priorities, saving lives, stabilizing the incident, and protecting property and the environment. Not always in that order, because sometimes the incident decides what comes first. Next was incident typing, from Type 5 all the way to Type 1, showing how incident size, complexity, and resources determine what kind of incident management team you might need. Type 5s are the everyday ones. Type 1 is when the world's basically imploding. We followed that with a complexity analysis, how to determine the incident type. It's the decision-making tool that helps you figure out when it's time to call in more help. And finally, we looked at what a Type 5 incident management team typically looks like. Small, local, and probably the same group that was already there when the thing started. So that's where we left off. You've got the basics, how incidents are defined, typed, and scaled. Now in part two, we take that knowledge and give it rhythm through the three-component system and the action cycle, the heartbeat of ICS. Let's get to it.
All right, now that we've talked about what a management system is and why it matters, let's introduce our management system, the Incident Command System. ICS is exactly what the name says, a system. It's not a single form, not a flowchart, and definitely not a checklist you pull out once the smoke clears. It's a living, repeatable process built around three key components that make it work every time. 1, the action cycle. 2, the players. And 3, the management characteristics. Let's start with the first one, the action cycle. This is where it all begins. The process of thinking, acting, and reassessing during an incident. Something happens. That's your trigger. You recognize it and take command. That's recognition. You assess what's going on. That's assessment. You plan your next steps, planning. You assign tasks, assignment. You carry out the work, operations. And then you check and adjust, reassessment. And when that's done, you circle right back through the process again. It's a continuous loop. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's how real incident management works. Decisions, actions, adjustments, over and over until the job's done. Next, we have the players. These are the people, the roles, that make the system function. From the incident commander to the command staff to the section chiefs and unit leaders, everyone has a defined role, a clear purpose, and a chain of communication. The beauty of ICS is that it's scalable. One person can fill several roles on a small incident, or hundreds can fill them on a major one. The structure flexes, but the principles stay the same. And finally, the management characteristics. These are the rules of the road, the leadership principles that keep the system consistent, safe, and accountable. Things like using common terminology, following chain of command, maintaining span of control, managing by objectives, and ensuring good communication and accountability. They're the glue that holds the system together. When you put all three together, the action cycle, the players, and the management characteristics, you get a complete management system that's adaptable, scalable, and built for any kind of incident. This is the foundation of DynamICS. Same ICS, but improved training, simplified, modernized, and made for how people actually think and work today.
Hey, Ash, I'm going to jump in here for a minute to talk about this one because this slide is the heart and soul of ICS. I am super stoked to introduce it to the world because I genuinely think it's going to revolutionize ICS for managing Type 5 and Type 4 incidents. All right, everyone, let's dig in. The action cycle is the engine behind the whole system. If ICS had a pulse, this is what you'd feel. It's the repeatable loop that takes you from, well, something just went sideways, to we've got a plan, people are working, and the incident is actually improving. Now, here's the interesting part. ICS already has a natural rhythm. You see it clearly in the planning cycle for Type 3 incidents. But nobody ever thought to bring that same rhythm down to the level where 99% of incidents actually happen, the everyday Type 5s and Type 4s. So we studied it, mapped it, simplified it, and built a version that regular humans can actually apply under pressure on real-world, common, everyday incidents. That's how the DynamICS action cycle was born. 8 steps. Simple, logical, practical. And they reflect what responders naturally do during an incident. 1. Something happens. The trigger. 2. Someone or something recognizes there's a problem and you realize it's yours. 3. You assess what's going on. Conditions, safety, problems. 4. You build a quick plan. Objectives and strategies. 5. You brief people, tell them what needs doing. 6. You run the operation. Start fixing things. 7. You check how it's going. Reassessment. 8. And then you loop right back to assessment because no incident stays static. The magic of this is simple. We took the complexity of ICS and turned it into a workflow that you can actually follow. Even when your phone is ringing, the radio is noisy, and people are asking you 10 questions at once. And here's the kicker. This isn't separate from ICS. It is ICS. The action cycle is the same thinking process that scales all the way up to the formal planning cycle used by Type 3 IMTs. When your incident grows, this flows right into that without missing a beat. Once you understand the action cycle, the rest of ICS finally makes sense. The players fit into it, the management characteristics support it, and the planning cycle is just the action cycle on steroids. This is the backbone of safe, effective incident management at any size, in any industry. All right, thanks, Ash. Keep up the good work. Back to you.
Every incident starts with a trigger, something that happens often before anyone even notices. A fire starts in a waste bin. A chemical jug tips off a shelf. A patient quietly slips out a side door. A lightning bolt hits a power line. An infectious disease lands on a plane and heads home for supper. Those are triggers, the moment the incident begins, whether people realize it or not. At this stage, there's no response, no decisions, no organization yet, just an event that lights the fuse on an incident. Triggers come in all shapes and sizes. Some are loud and obvious, like a crash or an explosion. Others are quiet, like a slow leak, a power flicker, or a system alarm that only a computer notices. The key thing is, something has happened that disrupts normal. It might be small, it might be huge, but it's the point where the story begins. It might even be a truck on fire at 8:30 in the morning at Rebel Mark's house. Yeah, true story. The trigger starts the clock. Recognition, step 2, starts the response. Once something has triggered an incident, the very next step is recognition. The moment when someone, or something, realizes, hey, something's not right here. Recognition can come from anywhere. An eyewitness who sees smoke, a staff member who notices a spill, a nurse who realizes a patient is missing, a security camera detecting movement, an alarm, a sensor, or even a computer quietly saying, we've got a problem. Recognition is when the incident is noticed and reported. And here's the key part. Once the trigger is recognized as a problem, the appropriate authority is notified. That could be through 911, local dispatch, an automated alarm system, or someone yelling down the hallway. Then that person or team arrives at the scene, confirms what's going on, whether that's a supervisor, a safety officer, security, maintenance, the fire department, or whoever is responsible in that setting, and assumes command. This is where ICS officially wakes up. And an important note, because ICS is about real people doing real work. Respond safely. You're no good to anyone if you don't make it to the scene in one piece. Recognition is the handoff between something happened and we're responding. Without recognition, incidents stay hidden. With recognition, the system comes alive and the work begins. Next up, step number 3, assessment. Now that you're on scene, what's actually going on? Before we dive into assessment, you might have noticed something important. The trigger and recognition steps have disappeared from the action cycle. That's not a mistake, that's by design. Those first 2 steps only happen once per incident. A trigger starts the whole thing. Recognition wakes up the system. And after that, they don't repeat. Well, if we manage properly, they shouldn't. Wink, wink. Everything from assessment onward becomes part of the wash, rinse, repeat loop. The continuous cycle of planning, assigning, operating, and reassessing. So now that the incident is active and you're in command, we move into the part of ICS that keeps repeating until the job is done. The action cycle, step 3, assessment. Okay, put the coffee down, step away from the donut, wipe the sleep from your eyes, and listen up. Because this is the most important step in the entire action cycle. If you get this part right, the rest of ICS becomes smooth and predictable. If you get it wrong, well, let's just say everything after this gets a whole lot more exciting than you want it to be. Now that you've arrived, taken command, and ICS has officially woken up, it's time for assessment. This is where good incident management truly begins. There are 3 big pieces to this step. 1, make the scene safe. First and foremost, get people out of harm's way. If the scene isn't safe, nothing else matters. Move people, isolate hazards, shut things down, back folks up, whatever it takes to stop the situation from getting worse. 2, maintain situational awareness. Don't get tunnel vision. It's human nature to zoom straight in on the obvious problem, the fire, the spill, the patient, the alarm. But strong incident managers take in the whole picture. What else is happening around you? What's changing? What could become a problem in the next few minutes? Situational awareness keeps you ahead of the incident instead of chasing behind it. 3, identify all the problems. This is your size up. Your job is to identify every problem that needs to be fixed. The trigger itself. Any problems the trigger caused. Any problems the trigger could cause if left alone. And even though we say your job, that's because you're running the show. It does not mean you do everything yourself. Use the people and resources you have on hand, as long as it's safe to do so. Sally, check the stairwell. Mike, take a walk around the back and report what you see ASAP. Jordan, confirm whether that alarm is real or a system glitch. A smart IC delegates parts of the assessment so nothing gets missed. Write your findings down however you can. Notebook, phone, pizza box lid, whatever works. The important part is capturing the problems because everything you do from this stage forward is built from this list. This is the single most important step in incident management. And as you assess, always anchor your thinking to the ICS priorities: saving lives, stabilizing the incident, and protecting property and the environment. Those three guide every decision you make. Next up, step 4, planning. Now that you know the problems, what are you going to do about them? Now that you've completed your assessment and identified your list of problems, it's time to shift gears into step 4, the planning process. This is where you take that messy list of everything that's wrong and start turning it into a plan that actually fixes things. We call this the Incident Action Plan, or the IAP for short. Here's how it works. First, look at each problem on your list and build a quick objective for it. An objective is simply what you want to do about the problem. It's one short, to-the-point sentence, but it speaks volumes. And here's the catchword we developed at DynamICS to help you remember the characteristics of a good objective. You need to be able to trust your objectives. T, task-oriented. It will become an assignment. R, realistic. Do you have access to the time and resources needed to make it happen? U, understandable. Use plain language. It has to make sense. S, safe and specific. Safety is number 1, and be specific about what the end result looks like. T, time of completion. When do they need the assignment completed by? Here's an example. Objective, locate 4 missing miners in Shaft 2 by 6 p.m. Once you've built your objectives, pair each one with 1 or more strategies, whatever it takes to fix the problem. Using that same example, strategies, attempt to establish radio communications, send search teams, use sounding techniques. Now comes the part where you figure out the resources required. This is where our DynamICS developed magic formula comes in, O plus S equal R. Objectives plus strategies equals the resources needed. Using the same mining example, resources required, 1 entry search team of 4, 1 backup search team of 4, 3 people to establish comms, total 11 trained personnel. Don't worry too much about the specialized equipment and such. You know what you have on hand. This is about the main resources you need, personnel, heavy equipment, etc. The core idea is simple. Your objectives and strategies tell you what resources are needed. Take that resource list, compare it to what you already have on scene, and anything you're missing needs to be ordered through your resource system. We'll turn all of this into assignments in step 5. And remember, in Type 5 and Type 4 incidents, a lot of this happens in your head. You're moving fast, things are changing, and sometimes you don't have the luxury of sitting down with a notebook and a fresh cup of coffee. But if the incident allows it, or if you feel yourself losing track, writing the plan down helps. Even quick notes on a scrap of paper can stabilize the mental chaos. This is where your incident action plan truly begins. Next up, step 5, turning that plan into assignments and giving people clear direction. Now that you've built your objectives, paired them with strategies, and figured out the resources you need, it's time for step 5, assignments and briefing. This is where you turn your O plus S equals R into actual task assignments. In other words, let's build the assignments and tell people what to do. DynamICS has a formula for that too. O plus S plus R equals task assignment. Let's use our mine rescue as an example. Objective, locate 4 missing miners in Shaft 2 by 6 p.m. Strategy, send in search teams. Resources available, 8 trained rescuers. Task assignment, assign 1 team of 4 to enter the shaft, once the shaft is deemed safe, to attempt rescue of trapped miners in Shaft 2, task to be completed by 6 p.m. Ensure a second team of 4 is established as backup. Are you seeing how it is all coming together? When you're ready to assign tasks, let's consider the ICS priorities and which assignment goes first. Saving lives, stabilizing the incident, protecting property and the environment. Listen up, here's an important truth. Saving lives is always the top priority, number 1. However, contrary to what many other ICS instructors will tell you, that order works great in theory, but sometimes we have to adjust in real life. Consider this. If you've got people trapped in a mine shaft, you're not sending teams into an unstable shaft just because life safety is priority number 1. If that shaft collapses, you've now doubled your problem. Trapped victims, and trapped rescuers. So first, you must stabilize the shaft. In other words, stabilize the incident. Then, you conduct the rescue in a safe and calculated manner. There is still some risk, but you've minimized it to the best of your ability. That's still life safety first, but we have to stabilize to make it work. In this example, it's the life safety of the rescuers first. You're just approaching it in a way that actually makes sense. Now let's talk about briefing your resources. A task assignment without a briefing is just wishful thinking. Your teams need to know exactly what the expectations are. A proper briefing covers the essentials, the assignment. What do you want them to accomplish? The communications plan. Who do they report to? What channel are they on? What's the backup method? The safety message. What hazards are present? What precautions must they take? What is absolutely off limits? The medical plan. If a responder gets hurt, what's the plan? Who treats them? Where do they go? How do they get moved? A solid briefing sets your team up for success and eliminates guesswork before it becomes a problem. Once everyone understands the plan, you send them out, monitor progress, support your teams, and prepare to cycle back into reassessment. Step 6, operations. Your resources were briefed, and now they're out there getting her done. Operations can roll out in a few different ways. Everything might happen all at once, or it may be staggered depending on how your incident is unfolding, how your resources are arriving, and what conditions you're dealing with. Either way, ops is happening, and things are starting to get fixed. In Step 6, your job is to keep a close eye on things. Make sure it's all going smoothly. Give the plan time to rev up and start producing results, and keep an eye on those timelines you threw a dart at earlier. This is also a great time to use your team wisely. Sit down and breathe. Catch up on some documentation. Pull out that pizza box lid and write down what you've done and where you're at so far. Ideally, fill out your ICS Form 201, the incident briefing document. But nah. What the heck is that? Seriously, it's a thing. Look it up. Use your resources smartly. If you have a safety officer, let her know what you're doing and to call you if they have any concerns. Make your team leaders earn their paycheck, or at least their box of donuts, and provide you with regular update reports. Regardless of how you manage this time, get some of the admin but important stuff done, while still keeping a pulse on what's happening out in the field. You're not micromanaging here. You're supporting the work, removing obstacles, and watching for any signs that the plan needs a tweak. Operations is where the plan becomes real. This is the let's start fixing things phase. The whole reason we built the plan in the first place. All right, your teams are out there doing the work, things are getting fixed, and operations are rolling along. Now it's time for Step 7, reassessment. This is where you pause, lift your head up from the chaos, and ask the big 3 questions. 1, is the plan working? 2, do we need to adjust anything? 3, what's next? Reassessment is about checking progress, catching problems early, and staying ahead of the incident, not chasing behind it. Remember, ICS isn't set it and forget it. It's dynamic, which, hey, is exactly why we call this DynamICS. Here's what you're doing in Step 7. Watch how the assignments are playing out. Compare the results to your objectives and timelines. Look for new issues that popped up since you launched operations. Confirm your safety considerations are still valid. Check in with your team leaders. Get real updates, not guesses. If things are going well, great, keep it rolling. If something is lagging behind, risky, or not producing the results you expected, adjust, modify, pivot. That's reassessment. And yes, sometimes this means going back into quick planning mode, a new objective, a new strategy, or a new resource request. That's normal. That's ICS. Always remember, the situation is changing. Your resources are moving, and what was safe 10 minutes ago might not be safe anymore. Reassessment protects your responders and keeps your plan aligned with reality. Once you've checked in, made your adjustments, and confirmed things are going along smoothly, and you're winning the battle, head on over to Step 8. Pass go, collect $200. Step 8. Head back to Step 3. Everything is falling into place like a well-oiled machine. Your teams are working, progress is happening, and the chaos is starting to look a little more organized. Now it's time for Step 8. Head back to step 3 and reassess the situation in its entirety. This is another moment where you can breathe again. Take stock of where things sit. Get a few things done, jot down notes, update your documentation, check in with your safety person, maybe even take a sip of that cold coffee sitting on the hood of the truck. Because once you've taken that breath, it's time to start the process all over again. Sometimes you have to fix this before you can fix this. Before you can fix this. Incidents are often resolved in stages, piece by piece, layer by layer. In ICS, we might call those stages operational periods, but we'll talk more about that in Essentials 2 when we dive into Type 4 incidents. For now, just remember, you loop back into the cycle, reassess the full picture, and start planning the next round of work. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's the ICS action cycle. Oh yeah, and if you're planning to collect your $200 for passing go, just send an invoice directly to the office of the fire commissioner. Tell him the ICS rebel told you to do it. Just kidding. Don't actually do that.
And just like that, we've come full circle. We're officially back to step 3, assessment. Wash, rinse, repeat. Before we move forward, let's take a moment to zoom out and look at the big picture. This entire action cycle you've just learned is unique to DynamICS. It's part 1 of our 3-component concept of ICS, a simple, practical, common sense way of breaking down how incident management actually works for real people in real incidents. In reality, there are times when this entire cycle will happen in seconds or minutes inside the incident commander's head. If the IC is well trained and experienced in the kind of incident it is, they go through this almost as a knee-jerk reaction. For me, as an example, as a fire chief with years of training and experience, I might pull up on a single vehicle rollover, and in seconds I've already run through most of this action cycle and my responders are out there doing their thing. Conversely, we might get called out to something really unique, like a high-angle rope rescue, which is a very unusual call, maybe once in a lifetime for a small department. In that case, I would go through this action cycle slowly and methodically to make sure I'm catching all of the details. It just depends on who you are and what you're dealing with. Regardless, it's the same steps in the action cycle. The beauty of this action cycle is that it works for all incident types and kinds, from the smallest type 5 call to type 4, all the way into the more complex type 3, type 2, and type 1 situations. And here's where it gets really interesting. As we move into type 3 incidents later in Essentials 3, type 3 incidents, you'll see that when an incident grows and you shift from an action phase into a planning phase, the concepts of both phases are very similar and blend together perfectly. The action cycle is for right now, what's happening in front of you and what needs to be done immediately, primarily type 5 and type 4. The planning cycle, type 3 plus, is for what's next, the next operational period, the next round of objectives, the next step in stabilizing the incident. They work hand in hand. One manages the present, the other prepares for the future. Together, they give you a complete, practical, efficient system to manage anything from a quick, single team response to a coordinated type 3 incident. Before we wrap up this section, I want you to take a minute and think about something important. You've already been doing this your entire life. Think about anything you've ever had to tackle. A project at work, a broken furnace, a messy family situation, a flat tire on the side of the road. Now compare it to this action cycle. You recognize the problem. You assessed the situation. You made a plan. You told people what needed to be done. You took action. You checked your progress, and you adjusted until it was fixed. Sound familiar? The only difference in ICS is the dynamic environment. Emergencies unfold fast and can be unpredictable. But the thinking process behind all of this, you already know it. You've lived it. All we're doing here at DynamICS is giving you a structured, reliable way to apply what you've always done in a situation where it matters even more. And just like that, you've survived part 2 of the DynamICS Basics seminar video series. Congratulations. You now officially know more about real-world ICS than half the management team in your office. Yeah, I said it. The comments in this video series do not reflect the opinions of MWE Training Solutions, DynamICS, or Mark's Kids and Boston Terrier. Just saying. We just walked through the entire action cycle, which is part one of our three-component DynamICS system. If your brain is buzzing right now, good, that means you're awake, which is more than I can say about some students I've taught after lunch during a 45-minute video presentation on the life of a finance section chief. If you're thinking, wow, I've actually done this stuff before, you're right. You've been using versions of this process your whole life. We just studied it, cleaned it up, named it, slapped a shiny DynamICS logo on it, and brought it to the next generation of ICS learning. Now, buckle up, because in part 3, we move into component 2, the players, the people who make this whole thing work. And don't worry, we're not doing the 47-roll ICS org chart dance that scares everyone away. Nope, we're keeping it simple, practical, and absolutely non-boring-ish. I know, it's still ICS. Insert rolly eyes here. If you enjoyed this and want to follow along, stalk me politely, or see what kind of trouble the ICS rebel is stirring up online, hit up the social media links, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all under DynamICS Training Solutions, or scan the QR codes on the slide like a pro. One gets you my blog, the other gets you my contact info. Use them wisely or recklessly. Your call. All right, grab a coffee, stretch your legs, pet your dog, text your mother, and I'll see you in part 3 where we introduce the players and this whole DynamICS system really starts to come to life. Rebel Mark signing off. Insert dramatic cape flutter.